Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. We are glad to have you with us today. As you know, we are rapidly approaching Monday night, where the Silver and Black are coming into the Motor City to take on the Detroit Lions. These are not the Detroit Lions of old. In fact, I'm already here in Detroit getting ready for the game to cover it. And we're very honored to have today Glover Quin, who is a 10-year NFL veteran. He is a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro, led the NFL in interceptions in 2014. He's also the host of Believe in the Lions podcast on the Believe Network. Let's welcome Glover in. Hi, Glover. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, man, thank you guys.
So I want to get into, obviously, you were an elite defensive back, All-Pro, Pro Bowl. You led the NFL in interceptions. What is it about Davante Adams that just makes him uncoverable? He's just a different player. What is that?
I mean, he has his ability to run routes, his footwork, his understanding of the defense and the leverages of defensive backs. Um, his the ability to get off the line, when defenders are trying to press him. I mean, I remember when he was a young guy, in Green Bay, and we would play against him twice a year. He was always just tough. Even though he was young and learning, you could tell like this guy has it. You know what I'm saying? And so the way he runs his routes, and the way he knows how to set up his routes and his footwork, his releases, all those things make him like really, really, really difficult to cover. So he's going to be a tough test for the Lions.
There is two different kinds of defensive backs. There is the guy who, hey, I only do coverage. I'm not putting my shoulder down. That's just not who I am. I'm a cover guy. Then there's the other guys which is great when you're a Deion Sanders. Then there are the other guys who say, listen, yeah, I am a coverage guy. I'm a defensive back. It's what I do, but I love to put my nose in there and just smack somebody too. I'm a football player. Glover, having grown up in Michigan, I've watched you, so I know how you play. You are that second guy. You are a What is it about that mentality, and how frustrated do you get as a corner? Because let me just share this. Nate Hobbs from Illinois is a Raider corner. Jacorian Bennett from Maryland is another, and Amik Robertson from Louisiana. I think he's Louisiana Tech. Those three guys are just come up and we're gonna wallop you. When you're that kind of guy, which you were, and an elite one, frustrating is it sometimes when you look at other guys who are just corners thinking, come on, you're a football player, hit somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, you know what I'm saying? Because you kind of feel like everybody should be like that, right? Like you should want to make tackles, be, like this is a physical sport. This is a contact sport. Um, and when guys are not like that, especially when they're on your team, you always rag on those guys and you're always getting on those guys because man, you could have came up and made a big hit right there. And that big hit could have, caused him to, maybe not catch the ball or whatever, like stop being soft and all these different things. And yeah, it could be very frustrating at times, when you have guys who don't want to do that. I think most guys kind of do. I don't know if we have a lot of the guys that just don't want to tackle anymore, but you definitely have some who really want to do it more than others. I will say that.
Well, that was you, and that was one of the reasons I was so excited to get you on the show because I remember telling people saying Glover plays defensive back like a linebacker, and that's a compliment. And I think you took it as that, don't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, anytime you can be like that and be known as somebody that can be physical and not afraid to take on running backs or big receivers or big tight ends or anything like that, like that's a good thing because if these teams know that you don't like to tackle, they're gonna set it up to where you have to tackle. If they got a team, they got a corner that doesn't like to be a part of the action, they're gonna set the run action to where, hey, we're gonna force you to tackle. And if you don't want to do it, it's going to hurt your team because they're going to consistently get yards. They're going to block everybody and leave the corner unblocked and force you to come make that tackle. And so, I mean, when you're known as somebody that they feel like will tackle, that's not afraid to tackle, that's a respect thing.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that's what's going on right now with the Raiders. Marcus Peters, we all know, is a great cover corner. but he's not physical, and teams are attacking that. That's very fascinating. All right, I want to switch attention because MCDC, Motor City Dan Campbell, this guy has changed it. He's brought in a lot of players as coaches, which I know brings credibility to the locker room. He's not afraid to fire an assistant if they're not doing the job. But he is a coach's coach, but a disciplinarian. He is that very fine line. Glover, you've been in the locker rooms. You're an elite player. You're not just a guy who hung around for a cup of coffee. You were elite. What is it about Dan Campbell that has so quickly turned around this Detroit Lion team?
I think it's just being relatable and being consistent to your message and practicing what you preach. I mean, I think, his personality, the gritty, the hard working, that's a great personality of the city. Detroit is a hardworking city, tough minded people. And Dan Campbell has brought that to the team. He's got the players to feel that same way and believe in that, hey, this is what we're gonna be. We're gonna be tough, we're gonna be gritty, we're gonna be grindy. That's how we're going to play. And being a relatable guy, the players can relate to him. A lot of times when you have these former players who were coaches, sometimes they could be unrelatable just because of how their career was. But Dan Campbell had a tough, hardworking, wasn't a superstar, just a good, tough football player that did things the right way. And that's kind of the mentality that he's brought to his team. And those guys are buying in, and they're finally seeing some of the results of that.
Glover, it's one thing for somebody that's never played in the league or somebody that had a cup of coffee, but your opinion carries so much weight because your career stood for excellence. I got to ask you, is this the kind of guy you would have liked to have played for?
Oh yeah, of course. You want to play for a guy that, obviously, when the coach understands what it's like to be the player, right? You can have certain type of dialogue, you can have a certain type of relationship. But I was the same way. I was a hardworking, blue collar, just grinded out. Wasn't the most athletic, wasn't the biggest, wasn't the strongest, but was gonna play hard every single down, was gonna fight, scratch, claw, do everything I could to survive. And so I'm pretty sure if I had to play for Dan Campbell, it would have been fun. Would have been something that I would have been like, oh yeah, this is good.
Glover, when I covered you before I moved to Vegas to cover the Raiders and all of that, but when I covered you, one of the things that always stood out about you to me, two things, and I think it's one of the reasons I care so much for you, is you were always the guy in that locker room that win, lose, or draw, it was go back to work. Just go back to work. You were a great locker room guy. You were a glue guy. And then you referenced something, and since you said it, I'm going to go off of it. You were not the biggest. You were not the fastest. You were not the strongest. But Glover, you were always the hardest worker. And I think that is a testament to your character and your integrity and what kept you around the league. For young kids watching today, who say, listen, I may not be the biggest, fastest, strongest, but I want to play football. I love it. You loved it. You loved the game, Glover. What do you say to those guys about, hey, don't get mad when people don't believe in your intangibles? You believe in you and you can make it because you are the only difference between you and Dan Campbell is 100 pounds and skin pigmentation.
Right, right, right. And that's really what you want to tell kids, man. I tell kids all the time, like, you just want to do enough to keep playing.
Yeah.
The chances of making it to the highest level is slim. But if you take care of everything that you have to take care of on your end, do you have to have some talent? Yes. Do you have to be the most talented? No. Do you have to work hard? Absolutely. And so if you take care of everything on your end, make grades, so now you can go to college, right? Stay out of trouble. I tell all my nephews and just my kids, a lot of a lot of kids weed themselves out, getting in trouble. Now they can't play. Don't make good grades. Now they can't play. You know, deciding to go get a job because they want to make some money earlier. Now they can't play. Getting involved with certain type of women and this, like, there's so many things that guys do that hurt themselves. if you just take care of your business, keep your nose clean, work your butt off, and just keep doing whatever you can to continue to play. You just never know. You know, you may be a late bloomer guy that just, gets it later and you don't there's not there's only one first round draft pick per team for the most part. The league is made up of third, fourth, fifth, sixth, undrafted guys that just have to be able to play. You're gonna have one or two superstars on a team, and everybody else is gonna be just hardworking blue collar guys for the most part. So that was me. That was who I was. I just wanted an opportunity to keep playing. So I left high school, went to junior college, left junior college, went all the way to New Mexico. And I was just looking for opportunity to keep playing and to continue to have an opportunity. And it just worked out to where when I did get my opportunity in the NFL, I never gave it back.
Never did. You made it count. I tell you what, I can vouch for you and what you were like in the locker room. I can vouch for integrity, character. Your teammates loved you. I remember one time watching you get on a teammate pretty good, but everything you said was truthful. When you were done, you hugged them. Guys loved having Glover Quin in the locker room, and that's a testament to your character, my friend. All right, let's go on to the next one. So the Raiders come in, and as you know, the salary cap is 224 plus $1 million, but the Raiders have tens of millions in dead space on wasted contracts. So they're putting 60 million on their defense, $102 million on the offense, and they can't score. They've not scored. The offense hasn't scored more than 19 points all year. You've got Josh Jacobs, the returning NFL rushing leader. Teams are stacking the box because the Raiders have no threat of getting the ball down the field. They're also doing some things like I mentioned earlier with Marcus. They're going to run in that direction because they want it, because they know he's not going to step up and play there. He's not the only one. I'm not putting it on him. I'm just using it as an example. You got Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, who's a number one wide receiver who's playing two here with all pro numbers. They've got all of these weapons and they can't score. So Glover, as they come into Detroit on Monday night, I'm curious. I would like how if the Raiders get the upset, what's the story going to be on Tuesday morning? What do the Raiders have to do to get this win?
I mean, they're gonna have to get their superstars going. Josh
Okay.
Jacobs is gonna have to really run the ball and run the ball well, control the game, and Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers is gonna have to really have big games. I don't know if Garoppolo is playing, but if he does play, he's gonna have to
He
have a
is.
big. He's gonna play. He's gonna
Yes,
have to
sir.
have a big game. Get the ball to Davante Adams, get the ball to Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs do his thing, and then defensively Marcus Peters will have to come up with a play. They're going to him on Ross St. Brown. Jameson Williams is getting back in the fold. I look for him to be more active this weekend. But Marcus Peters will probably have to come through and make a big play. Max Crosby, your superstars are gonna have to show up. Max Crosby, he's gonna have to show up on the D line, getting pressure. All those guys are gonna have to show up and help will those guys to a win.
Glover, I say this all the time, and I want to ask you about it because you're going to be able to take back the curtain and let fans see it in the NFL world. I tell everybody Monday Night Football in the NFL is completely different because when you're not playing, everybody's watching. I've been to players' houses for Monday night parties to watch Monday Night Football. I mean, it is the eyes of the entire NFL world. Forget the numbers. We know the ratings numbers are through the roof, but the eyes of the NFL world are watching this game. If you're the Raiders and you have woefully underproduced this year, you're 3-4, you just lose to a Bears team that was a ridiculous loss. Everybody watches on Monday night. Is that not true?
That's true for the most part.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, so this is a chance for them to make a statement. So Glover, I'm going to be very blunt. I think the Lions win this 24-16. If you had to make a prediction, who wins and what's the score, sir?
Well, I'm gonna pick the Lions, but I'm gonna go. I like the 16 or 17 for Oakland. I mean for Las Vegas. But the Lions coming back home, coming off a woeful offensive performance last week in Baltimore. I think they get back on track, and I'm gonna give the Lions 34. 30,
Okay.
31, 34,
All
34,
right.
16.
All right, awesome. It's a great score. Now, listen, last thing I want to say to you is I wish you nothing but the best. I love former players that go on and realize there's more to life when I'm done playing. You've done that. You've made the NFL proud. You've made your family proud. You're one of the good guys that I've had the privilege of covering. I wish you nothing but the best, Glover.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you a lot.
Right. He's one of the best. You got to love that guy. You got to respect him. Just nothing's been given to Glover Quin. Everything he had to earn. And I can tell you, as a guy that watched him in the locker room, he earned the most important thing. He earned the respect of his locker room. He's one of the good guys. I'm Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. That is the great Glover Quin. Remember, you can check him out and Believe in the Lions on the Believe Network. Great podcast. He does a good job. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on coming up soon.